Welcome to the Family Brand Show. We're Chris and Melissa Smith of FamilyBrand.com, husband and wife, parents of 5, and we want to help you take back your family and to live life on your terms.
And we know being a family can feel really overwhelming. Parents tell us they feel like they're being pulled in a million different directions. It's so challenging to navigate the uncertainty and all the chaos that's happening in the world right now.
And that's why we want to bring you every single week actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become a better parent, to become a better spouse, and to build a stronger family. And look, there's never been a better time and a more important time than right now to take back your family. You can define what your family stands for, or the world is going to do it for you. And the world needs strong families now more than ever. And it starts right here with your family.
We are so glad to be back in studio. For you, it probably doesn't feel like we were gone that much because we pre-recorded some episodes, but we've been out of the studio for 3 weeks or so now, and so glad to be back. Yeah, I feel like we got our second half of summer before us. I sat down with the kids yesterday and said, all right, it's the first day of the rest of the summer. What do we want to do with the rest of the summer? So I'm feeling really excited about the rest of the summer. I want to really optimize it and make it a really great summer. But that's not even what we're talking about today. Today we're going to talk about our last couple of weeks and some big takeaways that we've had and just things we've been talking about in our own home.
Yeah, we went to Croatia for a week, and then we went to Turkey for a week. And this is the second time going to Croatia with the company Solomori. Melissa and Antony, the owner of Solomori, collaborated on a family brand cruise. Antony does cruises throughout Croatia every summer. It's such an amazing company. He's an amazing just human being. His team is incredible. So we did it 3 years ago with a group of entrepreneurs and loved it. And so typically his cruises are not for families necessarily. You can bring your families, but it's mostly adults. And so he called it the Forever Family Cruise.
Week?
The Forever Family Week. Anyways, some really cool families. And we just cruised throughout Croatia. And Croatia is such a magical... If you ever have the chance to go to Croatia, go. It is so awesome. And we just wanted to share some maybe the kind of the takeaways that we had. I feel like every time we travel, no matter where we go, close or far, there's just lessons and takeaways that I think we bring back with us and a new appreciation about, people and their culture. So we just want to talk about some of the takeaways.
I would second what you said. I was just telling someone yesterday, they're like, oh, we've thought about Croatia before, it's on the list. And if Croatia is on your list, if you've ever considered Croatia, I would definitely move it up the list. It is so beautiful. The people are lovely. It's a very safe place to go. And for us English speaking people who are not as bilingual as I would like, it's really easy to navigate there. Most people speak English, but you still get some really cool cultural experiences that are probably different from where you are right now. So, love Croatia. Yeah, so we've just been talking about, just stepping outside of your life, no matter where you go for a minute. It gives you such a beautiful opportunity to reset, whether that's camping or maybe it is a bigger trip. I just feel like hopefully you come back and you're refreshed and you have a fresh view on things and how your life wants to operate. And so did we talk about, I don't think you talked about Istanbul yet, did you?
We went to Croatia and then we went to Turkey.
And then we went to Turkey. And we recorded our last episode in Turkey, so we have mentioned it before. So I guess this episode will be kind of both. It'll be about Croatia and then it will be about a little bit about Turkey too, which was such a cool country as well. Very different from Croatia. In fact, very different from anywhere we had ever traveled before. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but let's talk about Croatia first. And I think if you do go to Croatia, you do need to travel to the coast. And if you can, you got to go through some of the islands and be on the water. During our time there, we went to these beautiful villages, and some of them are very, very small. And one thing I love about the Croatian culture is they're very big on family, actually. And on this cruise, Antony's parents were also on the cruise. And Antony's story is that his parents were both born in Croatia and they lived there until their early 20s, and then they actually immigrated to New Zealand in their early 20s. And so Antony is full Croatian heritage, but he was born in New Zealand. And when he traveled to Croatia, he said he traveled once when he was little, and then the next time he came was when he was 17. And he said when he came when he was 17 to his parents' village, everyone knew him. Even though he'd only been there once before, they recognized him and they knew him. And he was like, wow, I want to keep experiencing this, and I want other people to be able to experience this. So that's why he started bringing people to Croatia. So we got the opportunity to visit this little villages. There's tons of little towns all along the coast, but because Antony's dad was with us, we went to his village and we got to see where he grew up. And it was so cute. Like, it's pretty small, but there's a lot of like men there that would come and sit like at nighttime as the sun's going down. They come out to like the local restaurant, I guess, that's right there on the beach, and they meet together and they play cards. And I guess Antony says that this is one thing that they do every summer, no matter where. Like, a lot of them, the economy at the time when these men who are now in their probably 70s or 80s were growing up is such that a lot of them left Croatia seeking more opportunity. But in the summer, they all come back now in their 70s and 80s, and they all play cards every night at this restaurant. And I was like, that is so cool to have those friendships that they come back to every summer. I don't know, that was just something that I don't really see where I live. And I thought it was really inspiring in a way.
Yeah, to echo what Melissa said about the family, there was a number of dinners that Antony sets up, and they have these, a couple of the dinners you eat on the boat, but then, and a couple, maybe one was on your own, and then others, they're curated and they've organized it. And I think on 2 or 3 different occasions at dinner, they would have what they call in Croatia a klapa. And so a klapa is like a band, if you will. They don't have any instruments, they're a cappella, and they sing, but they sing like traditional Croatian songs. And it's really important to them to preserve these songs, and these songs are their stories, and it has so much to do with their family. And so that was super inspiring. Yeah, like that the Croatian people, they just preserving their family's heritage, their family's traditions, their family stories is super important to them. And you could just, you could just tell that is one of the families a priority there. And if you've followed us for any amount of time with Family Brand and the research that's been done on families that we've drawn from for the Family Brand program, that was one of the biggest pieces that came out of the research of what makes up strong families, was that families prioritize each other. And so it's just cool to see an entire country from our perspective, and every village and their whole culture is, no, you make family a really big priority. And that was super inspiring, and just, I think, a reminder to us of like, what are we doing to prioritize our family? Also, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think maybe these two things go hand in hand, that there's a slower pace of life. At least, we're in these smaller seaside villages that we were experiencing. Yeah, there's just they're not in a rush. There's no like grinding and hustling. It takes these villages a while to wake up in the morning. They stay up really late at night. I would say every one of the kids on the boat, whether they were from Singapore or Australia or Portugal or the US, and that was kind of cool. There's a lot of, families on the boat or from all over the world. Every kid was like, man, the meals here take forever. Like, lunches and dinners take forever. But I was like, that's so cool though. In our society in the US, it's almost like, how fast can you eat your meal? Right? And maybe when you go out to eat, it's like, how fast can they serve you your food and then get out of there? And it was even interesting how frustrated we get as Americans when we go out to dinner or out to lunch if the food takes a while. Whereas if you're in Croatia, they probably are like, oh, I'm so glad the food's taking a while, because it just gives us more opportunity to just be with each other and connect. Because to them, whether the food takes a while or not doesn't matter, because they're going to be there for 2 or 3 or 4 hours anyways, talking and visiting and playing games. And so I just thought that was cool. And I think that, again, there's probably no coincidence that those two things go hand in hand. That you have a culture that operates at a little bit slower pace, that also puts a huge emphasis on family and prioritizing family. And maybe those things are connected. Maybe they have time to prioritize their family. Maybe they have time to make family a big deal because they're not constantly being pulled in multiple directions and running at an insane pace. So that was just cool. That was a cool takeaway and a reminder that maybe we can slow down a little bit in life. Maybe we can eat more meals together. Maybe it's okay if those meals last longer, and prioritize our family and preserve our family's heritage and history and stories.
There was a word that Antony introduces to this year, and it's a Croatian word, and the word is Pomalo. And it becomes kind of like this theme throughout the trip that he would say, and it would just, be Pomalo. No.
Live Pomalo.
Yeah, Pomalo. And when I look up the definition right now, it says it's a Croatian slang term and philosophy lived in or used in the Dalmatia region, which is where we were. It literally means slowly. It's widely used to mean take it easy, no stress, relax, don't hurry. Pomalo.
Yeah. So that was a takeaway for us. Exercise a little bit, more pomalo in our lives. And then it was a drastic contrast and a cool way to go from these little seaside villages, Pomalo, to the Istanbul that I think Istanbul has 15 million people in the city. And it was awesome. Like the most unique, different country for us and culture we've ever experienced. For one, none of us have ever been to a country that's predominantly Muslim, which that's the case in all of Turkey. And so just that, like our very first day being there at lunch, we're sitting out on an outdoor patio eating lunch at this Turkish restaurant, which the food in Turkey was incredible. And there was a local mosque nearby, and they're call to prayer, which is over loudspeakers that goes throughout the city. And it really kind of scared our youngest because she just didn't know what it was. I never heard that the Arabic language, and like, what is going on? Is something wrong? Is that like...
And it's really loud, and it's kind of like this sing-song voice, and it was just so different than... I don't even really know how to describe it, but yeah.
Yeah. So being in a new place facilitated like new conversations for us and had us really learn more about the Islamic faith than we've ever learned. And we got to visit some really beautiful mosques, and we just felt so welcomed everywhere we went in Turkey. We felt so welcome to the mosques, and it was cool to see them so willing to share their faith. And I would say for me, I can say authentically that I had going into Turkey probably a narrow-minded, media influenced view of what an Islamic culture or the Muslim faith is. And I didn't have a negative perception of it, but I just had probably a very naive perception. So it was cool to just go and actually experience it and learn as much as we can and just do things we've never done. Like we went to a Turkish bath, like a traditional Turkish bath, which was like, it was our very first day there. And all of the kids were like, yeah, we've definitely never done something like that. But they loved it. And it was like uncomfortable. And I would say Croatia was very comfortable.
Yeah.
Very like easy. Nothing was like confronting. Yeah. And Turkey was like pretty consistently, in a good way, a little bit uncomfortable because everything was so new.
And including, I mentioned that, I think that's a good way to put it. But in Turkey, or in Croatia rather, most people speak English. In Turkey, I felt like there's not a lot of people that spoke English, far less people. So even that of itself is a little uncomfortable. How do you communicate, and how do you exchange ideas and get your point across? Or I don't know, that even just that makes it a little uncomfortable and a little more, there's more resistance to it all.
Also, in Croatia, I mean, sometimes you feel like it's obvious where someone comes from. Like you can look at something like, oh, they're definitely American or they're European. And sometimes you might guess and you're wrong. But I feel like in Croatia, there was a lot of American families. Like there was some on the boat, but even like when we stop off in these villages, right, you'd see lots of Europeans, lots of Americans, quote unquote, people who look like us. In Turkey, I didn't see, we were there a whole week, very, very few that I would say like, oh, they're Americans. But I think like that was, I loved experiencing that. I loved our kids experiencing something where it's like, we're definitely a minority here. And but again, people were so kind and welcoming, and it was just so cool to learn about a completely different way of life.
And that's what I love too so it was Tate and Tanner, our two oldest boys, who had initially thrown out the idea of going to Turkey, and we're like, and the idea was that we'd go somewhere different than we've ever been before. And I love that all of our kids got to experience that. And I think that the rest of their lives, if they meet someone who's of the Islamic faith or who's Muslim, that they will have a favorable view, and they'll kind of understand their beliefs. And I think that's really cool that they got that.
Yeah. So, and then on the drive home from the airport back to Phoenix, we just kind of had this conversation of like, what are you bringing back with you from this trip in the form of like a lesson or experiences or memories? And it was just cool to hear everyone share, and including a newfound, maybe newfound, but a renewed appreciation and love for where we live. So like a new or renewed appreciation for like Croatia, and a new appreciation for Turkey, and then a renewed appreciation even for like our own home and living in the U.S. and what that makes available.
Our small town.
Yeah, for us. And so I would say, as much as you can, my encouragement would be travel. Whatever that means. Like, that doesn't mean you have to go international. It doesn't mean you have to, but just travel, get to know other people, get to know other faiths. There's opportunity to do that, like in your own town, right? Like,
yeah, I was just talking to my dad picked us up from the airport, and he was telling me about this opportunity that he and my mom had recently with just locally working with a woman and her son. I can't remember what the nonprofit is, but it was for women who are Muslim, and it supports them. And my parents got to go help them, and they were just talking about their awesome experience meeting them and working with them. And to your point, that was just in their backyard.
Yeah. So maybe it's like maybe the takeaway is less about travel and more about just being open to getting to know other people, other beliefs, other, cultures. And then also I get a huge reminder for me of like, Pomalo, slow down a little bit, eat more meals together, spend more time with those meals, and really prioritize, your family, and make sure that you're doing everything you can to preserve the heritage and the stories of your family.
I love that. One other thing that I discovered on the boat is there were some books on the boat that I don't know if past passengers had just left, or I don't know, maybe they were intentionally curated on the boat. I don't know. But regardless, there were some books just tucked away on a shelf, and I pulled a book off the shelf and I read the entire book during that week. I historically loved reading, and I haven't read in years. Like, usually I'll listen to a book. I do listen to a lot of books, but as far as like sitting down and reading a book, I haven't done that. And so I finished that book, and then I actually read a second book all in that week. And it was so wonderful. Like, I loved it so much. And I was like, why have I not prioritized this? And I think it goes kind of back to your thought earlier of being like busy. Somehow sitting on the couch and reading a book feel like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like this is just me. Maybe I'm a weirdo, but I'm like, it feels a little self-indulgent. Like I should be starting dinner, or the dishes need to be done, or there's always something to do. You know what I mean? And so I don't ever do it. And it felt so good. And I was like, I'm going to come home and I'm going to like go to the library and I'm going to check out books, and I'm going to like just sit in a chair and read a book. Like, why do I not do that? So that's another takeaway that I'm excited to do coming back from our trip. So here's to the rest of summer. I hope you have a beautiful rest of summer.
All right, so that is it for today's episode of the Family Brand Podcast.
But before you go, we have something fun for you.
Yeah, like if you've ever wondered, okay, so how's our family culture actually doing? We've got an incredible quiz for that.
Good news, it's quick, it's free, and when you're done with that quiz, we'll even email you this awesome PDF full of practical ways to strengthen your family culture right away.
So all you have to do is go to familybrand.com/quiz, take the quiz, grab the PDF.
We'll see you next time.